Have you ever heard of epigenetics? I hadn't either until a couple days before I wrote the post that accompanies this audio or video, but apparently biologists have been studying it since the 70s, but the results of their studies haven't really seemed to hit the mainstream media yet for whatever reason. And I think that this well-kept secret could be the key to figuring out why your daily habits always seem to sabotage your personal growth. If we think about why we develop daily habits to begin with, we do it so that we can live the fulfilling life we were meant to live. But in order to be fulfilled, we first have to meet some needs. And these, of course, are the needs that are outlined by Abraham Maslow, my buddy who I always refer to. And he put together the hierarchy of needs. And at the very bottom of that hierarchy are basic needs. So those are physiological and safety needs. And you may think that you're meeting these needs because if you have internet access to watch this video, then you probably have food, shelter, and clothing. So your physiological needs are probably being met. And your safety needs, even if you don't feel 100% safe all the time, you probably have some stability and order in your environment. So you probably feel like those needs are being met too. But what if your physiological needs, the very needs that all of your other needs depend upon, aren't actually being met at all? So for example, let's think about our food intake. So sure, you're eating, you're not starving, but are you eating in a way that supports the positive expression of your genes? What? What the heck does that even mean, right? I know. Yes, that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about why do your genes even need to express themselves. We're going to get into details in a minute here, but the long and the short of it is that your daily habits change the messages that your genes receive, and it changes the way that your genes express themselves. So your habits can determine which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. And of course, we want to turn our good genes on, we want to turn the bad genes off, and we want to make sure that our good genes are receiving the right messages, or else they start making mistakes. And in this way, we can meet our physiological needs, which means that we may need to change our daily habits because, like I said, these daily habits are sabotaging our personal growth by not supporting the expression of our genes. So biologists have found that our genes express themselves in many different ways. They can determine how quickly we age. They can turn certain cancer cells off and on. Certain genes cause inflammation and certain genes reduce inflammation, and inflammation can lead to all kinds of diseases, pretty much anything you could think of, including heart disease. Gene expression can cause insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes, and it can even lead to depression from stress exposure, which we'll talk about all that in a little bit here. But hopefully you're starting to see why the expression of our genes is important and want to know more about what daily habits you could implement that would help with the positive expression of your genes. So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty a bit here. But first I want to just say that I'm not a biologist, I'm not a medical professional. I really don't know what I'm talking about, to tell you the truth. All I know is what I've learned so far through my research, and I want to share it with you because I do believe that it is a tool that you can use to become your best self. But in the spirit of I hope that you take this post. My goal is that you will take this and you'll stay curious and learn more on your own. And I have links to all of my sources at the end of the narrative post, so you can go start doing some more research on your own. But with that in mind, I'm going to actually do something I don't normally do, and I'm going to actually read the rest of this post right from the narrative post. I'm just going to read it word for word because I don't want it to appear like I know what I'm talking about, because I really don't know that much about it. I have very limited knowledge, and I don't want it to look like I'm an expert or, portray that somehow. So I'm just going to start reading the rest of this right from the post. So here we go. Alright, so the nitty-gritty. Buckle in because this part is going to get a bit scientific, but it is so interesting. Every cell in your body contains the exact same DNA. The cell knows what kind of cell it is, whether it's a nerve cell, a blood cell, a brain cell, or whatever, because of messages it receives from tags that attach to it. These tags are called epigenomes. A good analogy that I got from Hank Green is that your epigenomes are like the software that runs your DNA. So your DNA is the hardware, your DNA is the computer, and your epigenomes are then the software. So the hardware, if you think about it, the hardware from two computers can be exactly the same, and yet the computers can perform completely different functions because of the software that is installed on them. And it's the same for our DNA. Another thing that we need to know about are histones. So your histones are the proteins that your DNA wraps itself around. And your epigenetic tags, the epigenetic tags determine how tightly your DNA wraps around the histone. And if it's wrapped loosely, the gene will be expressed. And if it's wrapped tightly, the gene will not be expressed. So just getting out some basic terms here. But here's the crazy thing. Environmental factors like diet, exercise, and stress determine the types of tags you produce, the epigenomes, which cells they attach to, and whether that tag is going to tell the DNA to express itself or not. And here's another crazy thing. Some of these tags are passed on to our children through our DNA, or we've gotten them from our parents through their DNA. The good news is, research has shown that changing the environmental factors of the offspring can change the tags, in mice at least. Yet, another crazy thing, it's not just physical environmental factors that determine the types of tags you produce. Social experiences can also cause epigenetic changes to our DNA. Things such as exposure to financial stress, abuse or neglect, witnessing violence, death of a loved one, and family instability. Environmental factors can cause the wrong tags to attach to the wrong cells or to the wrong places. Then your cells aren't going to know what they're supposed to do because, again, these tags are what tell your cell what kind of cell it even is. And they're going to start making mistakes. And these mistakes are what then lead to diseases. Clear as mud? I know. I'm still learning myself, but hopefully this summary makes some kind of sense and at least proves how important epigenetics is to our overall well-being and personal growth. Now we're going to talk about some random epigenetic facts. The question remains, could understanding epigenetics be the key to figuring out why your daily habits always seem to sabotage your personal growth? Could you pinpoint which daily habits you need to change in order to experience positive gene expression? I definitely think it's a possibility, and it's something worth staying curious about. So let's discuss a few random facts that I've picked up in my research so far to pique your interest a bit more, and to give you a clue as to some daily habits that you might want to implement to help with a positive gene expression. Okay, so we got a few facts about vitamin D here. Vitamin D has been found to regulate the expression of over 900 genes. This is equivalent to 1/24 of the human genome, or of our DNA. And vitamin D can turn good genes on and bad genes off. Vitamin D can also turn genes on that lead to serotonin production. And serotonin is the chemical that regulates a lot of our behavior. It regulates depression, anxiety, aggression. It also regulates our cognitive functions like perception and memory. So that's a big deal. Vitamin D has also been found to decrease DNA damage, and it has been found to increase anti-inflammatory genes. Inflammation can lead to all sorts of diseases, from asthma to cancer to heart disease. So vitamin D is turning those genes off that would lead to those diseases. Then we move on to vitamin B, or the B vitamins. There's 8 B vitamins altogether. B vitamins and folic acid can create epigenetic tags that turn cancer genes off, thereby preventing you from getting cancer. B vitamins and folic acid can be found in green leafy vegetables, broccoli, lentils, and avocado. Trans fats. So now we're moving on to the bad, the things that are bad for our gene expression. Trans fats and other unhealthy foods are seen as an alien substance by your genes, and your genes will try to protect themselves from this alien substance. As a result, you will experience inflammation, which we already talked about is a bad thing because it can lead to all kinds of diseases. So you could experience inflammation and cell damage. Now we're moving back to some good things. Meditation has been found to increase the length of telomeres. So this is another new word for us here. Telomeres are what protect our chromosomes, and they are at the end of each, well, they're found at both ends of our DNA. So telomeres protect our chromosomes, and our chromosomes house our DNA. When telomeres get too short, our cells age and stop functioning properly. 4 hours of exercise a week may increase the expression of genes that stimulate the growth of new brain cells. And here's our last fun fact. 40 tags distributed throughout the genome or throughout our DNA may be influenced by exposure to adverse conditions such as abuse, neglect, family instability, financial stress, and poverty. Now what? So what do we do with all of this information that I'm throwing at you? Well, I hope that I've at least convinced you that your daily habits change the messages that your brain receives, and that those messages could be sabotaging your personal growth. And I hope you'll take this knowledge and learn more about epigenetics on your own. Because I think the more tools we have to live the fulfilling life we were meant to live, the better. And I wrote a post a while back that you might want to refer to that might be helpful, that is about, it discusses good exercise, diet, and sleep habits. And so there is a link to that in the narrative post if you want to check that out. And of course, I put a worksheet together for you. This worksheet's a little different than my normal worksheets because just because of the topic, it had to be a little bit different. But it will summarize this post, and what it's going to do is help you figure out what you want to learn about next, what you want to learn about epigenetics, why you would want to learn about it, and etc. So check out the post check out the worksheet because that'll help you get to the next step. And until next time, stay curious.